Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are going to be looking at the 10 ox herding pictures from Zen Buddhism.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and we'll be working with a transcript of a YouTube video from the channel Complete Works.
Okay.
And, I think it'd be really interesting if we can kind of go on this journey with this ox herder and see what these pictures can kind of reveal to us about, our own searches for meaning and truth and maybe even a little enlightenment.
I like that. And what I think is so interesting about this in particular is how it uses such a simple image, the ox and the herder, to represent something much deeper, like our own search for meaning and truth.
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump right into the first picture, Searching for the Ox.
Okay.
And, the poem that accompanies this picture really kind of sets the scene. It says, "Across endless fields I wander, my strength wanes, my spirit wearies." It's such a relatable feeling, right? That
Yeah.
sense of being lost and kind of just searching for something, but you don't even know what it is.
Yeah. Totally. It's that universal experience of longing, that feeling that something's missing, like we haven't quite arrived yet.
Yeah.
And I think the picture isn't necessarily about failing to find the ox. It's about acknowledging that we're on a quest. And that is actually a huge first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even this line about the locust song that I thought was really thought-provoking. It's like the world's just going on, indifferent to our own struggles.
It really speaks to that solitary nature of the journey,
Yeah.
even when we're surrounded by people. And then in picture two, we have seeing the tracks. And here we start to see a little glimmer of hope. We've moved from aimless wandering to kind of finding a trail, however faint.
Right.
The poem says, "A path laid before me unseen till now, footprints faint yet unmistakable."
It's like realizing, oh, there's a way forward.
Right.
There's a direction to this.
What's interesting here is that the tracks are not separate from the seeker. They kind of rise from the same path, which suggests a deeper interconnectedness between the seeker and the sought.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think about all those, little signs or synchronicities that we encounter,
Yeah.
like maybe a book that speaks to us or a chance encounter or even a dream that feels significant.
Yeah.
Could those be like those tracks guiding us towards something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about being open to those moments of resonance, those subtle nudges
Yeah.
that we might otherwise miss.
Yeah. So then we move to picture 3, which is the first glimpse of the ox.
Okay.
And here, we experience this breakthrough. We finally catch a glimpse of what we've been searching for.
Yeah.
And the poem reads, like a flash of a fish beneath the surface. It's this very fleeting thing. Why is that?
I think that this picture is so crucial because it teaches us that enlightenment or understanding or whatever you want to call it rarely comes as this big aha moment.
Yeah.
Often it arrives in fragments, these little glimpses, that we need to learn to recognize and hold on to.
So it's not about waiting for that one big epiphany.
Right.
But about kind of being present enough to notice these smaller moments of insight, like when the world suddenly seems, more vivid and alive.
Absolutely. And the more we can cultivate that mindfulness,
Right.
the more those glimpses of the ox become part of our everyday experience.
But then things get real in picture 4.
Okay.
This is catching the ox.
Okay.
And here the tone really shifts from uncertainty to struggle.
Uh-huh.
The ox, which in this case represents our mind, has been caught, but it resists.
Right.
And it thrashes, unwilling to yield.
Yeah.
Its wild heart resists restraint.
That reminds me of when I first started trying to meditate regularly.
Yeah.
It felt like wrestling an ox. Like my mind was constantly trying to run away into, thoughts and distractions and anything but stillness.
So we finally got a hold of this ox, but it's putting up a fight.
This is where the real work begins,
Yeah.
right? Like realizing that you need to change is one thing, but actually putting in the effort and facing that inner resistance to discipline and self-reflection.
Yeah.
That's a whole other ballgame.
So it's not about forcing the mind to change, but more about patiently guiding it.
Exactly. It's finding that balance between firmness and gentleness, like the ox herder in picture 5, taming the ox. He says, to guide it, I must first tame myself. The mind must be led, not forced.
There's such a sense of, patience and dedication needed in this picture. Like it's like training an athlete
Yeah.
or mastering a craft. It takes consistent effort.
Yeah, definitely. This is where we develop, the discipline and resilience to navigate these challenges of self-transformation.
Right. And then it seems like all that work pays off in picture 6, riding the ox home.
Right.
Where there's this beautiful sense of ease and harmony. The poem reads, "The path ahead grows clear. The world is as it has always been, yet my heart is lighter.
The ox representing the mind is now moving freely in harmony with the herder.
Yeah.
And this is that effortless flow that we experience when we're not, constantly chasing after things or resisting what is.
It's like that Zen saying, chop wood, carry water, We find enlightenment just in the simplicity of everyday life.
Uh-huh.
But then picture 7 things get really interesting.
Okay.
This is ox forgotten self alone. And it's like this weird paradox. The ox is gone, the struggle is forgotten, but the journey continues.
Yeah.
No footprints remain, no traveler, no road.
This points to, I think, a deeper understanding. The struggle itself was an illusion of separation. The ox was never really separate from the herder, just as our true nature is never separate from our experience.
So even though the ox is gone,
Right.
the essence of it is still there.
Think of it like the moon hidden by clouds. It's still there even when we can't see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this leads us to picture 8. Picture 8. Both ox and self-forgotten. It feels like we're going beyond the concept of enlightenment here.
Yeah.
The poem reads, "All is one without division. There is no search, no seeker, only the silent song of existence." It's like the whole journey's dissolved.
Right. Yeah. It's like we were striving for something that was already there, but we just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And it's not about achieving some special state, but it's about realizing that we were never separate from it in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And with this realization comes, a deep sense of peace and freedom.
Right.
There's no more striving, there's no sense of lack or incompleteness, just the present moment unfolding as it is.
Wow. That is powerful. But how does that translate into like living in the world?
Right.
How do we bring this awareness into our daily lives?
That's where picture 9 comes in, returning to the source. The ox herder is back in the world, but something's fundamentally different. The poem reads, "Barefoot, unburdened, I walk among men. Only laughter, only simple steps."
So it's not about escaping the world.
Right.
It's about engaging with it from this new perspective of, wholeness and clarity.
Exactly. The ox herder is no longer burdened by the illusion of separation,
Right.
the need to strive or grasp.
Right.
There's just a natural flow to their action, the lightness of being.
Yeah, it makes me think about those people who just radiate this kind of effortless peace. They're fully present, but not weighed down by the world.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the heart of what it means to share what cannot be given, which is really highlighted in the final picture.
Yeah, the 10th picture, entering the marketplace, it always felt so symbolic to me.
Yeah.
Why is the ox herder returning to this really, bustling, chaotic scene?
Well, think about it. We often imagine enlightenment as this solitary pursuit achieved through, isolation and intense practice.
Yeah.
But here we see the ox herder fully integrated back into the world, interacting with others, living a seemingly ordinary life.
Right. It's like they've brought the fruits of their journey back into the world.
Right.
But if enlightenment can't be given or taught, what is the ox herder actually sharing?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The ox herder is sharing a way of being, a perspective that arises from deep inner transformation.
Okay.
It's not about grand pronouncements or, trying to convert others, but like a subtle shift in how they move through the world,
Yeah.
how they interact with every experience.
It makes me think of the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Like we may not always see the impact we have on others, but, even the smallest actions can create a change.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The ox herder's presence in the marketplace is like a subtle fragrance
Yeah.
that's influencing the atmosphere without, anyone even realizing where it's coming from. Their actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, it really challenges our whole notion of what it means to be enlightened.
Yeah.
It's not about withdrawing from the world, but bringing that awakened perspective into every aspect of life.
Exactly. And the last line of the poem, we hear, "The journey is complete, and yet it is only just begun," which points to the paradox that enlightenment is both a culmination and a beginning.
Yeah, it's like reaching the mountaintop,
Yeah.
only to realize there's a whole new range to explore.
Exactly.
There's always more to discover,
Yeah.
more to learn, more to embody.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's a really hopeful message.
Yeah.
It means that no matter where we are on our own path, there's always more to discover, more to integrate, more to share.
Right. This has been such a rich and thought-provoking dive so far.
Yeah, it has.
And I'm really excited to kind of dive into this final picture with you.
Okay.
After a quick break, we'll be right back. All right, so we're back, and I am still thinking about this last picture, entering the marketplace. It's such a powerful image to end on. What is it about that scene that feels so significant to you?
Well, it's almost like the punchline to a cosmic joke, you know?
Okay.
We spend all this time seeking enlightenment, imagining it as this grand transcendent state, and then we find the ox herder back where they started, in
Yeah.
the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
Yeah, you'd expect them to be, meditating on a mountaintop, not haggling for vegetables.
Exactly, and I think that's the point.
Yeah.
The 10 ox herding pictures aren't just this guide to personal transformation.
Okay.
It's also a commentary on how we view enlightenment itself.
So it's not about escaping the world or achieving this special status, but about integrating that awakened perspective back into, the messiness of life.
That's the beauty of it. The ox herder isn't preaching or trying to convert anyone. They're just being.
Right.
And in that being, they're subtly influencing the world around them.
It makes me think of that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Absolutely.
They embody that perfectly.
And the poem for this picture says, "With open hands, I share what cannot be given."
Yeah, that line always gets me.
It speaks to that paradoxical nature of enlightenment.
It's like trying to describe the taste of an apple.
Right.
You have to just experience it.
Exactly. And yet, even though enlightenment can't be given or taught, like a object, it can be embodied. It can radiate outwards.
Okay.
Think of the impact a truly compassionate and present person has on, those around them.
Yeah, it's like that ripple effect. Again, you might not always see the full impact of your actions,
Right.
but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that final line. The journey is complete, and yet it has only just begun. It's an
Yeah.
ending and a beginning.
It's a beautiful paradox. It reminds us that, we might catch these glimpses of enlightenment, but the journey is ongoing.
Yeah, the journey of understanding and embodying that wisdom,
Right.
it's ongoing.
Yeah, and that's kind of a hopeful message. No matter where we are on our path, there's always more to discover,
Always.
more to integrate, more to share.
Yes. Well, this has been such a rich and thought-provoking dive.
It is.
I really appreciate you having me to, talk about this today.
Yeah, this was great. And for our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired to kind of explore these 10 ox herding pictures further, there are so many resources available, from translations of the original poems to commentaries by, contemporary teachers.
It's a journey worth taking.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you discover about yourself and the world around you.
And as we wrap up, I'm kind of left with this question. If enlightenment is about sharing what cannot be given, how can we each embody that principle in our own lives? What subtle fragrance can we bring to the world, just by being who we truly are? Let those questions kind of simmer as you continue on your own journeys. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring.